Carrots were not always orange. Older varieties came in purple, white, and yellow, and the orange form was likely spread by Dutch growers who favored that color. The edible part is a swollen underground root storing sugar for the plant. Trade routes carried it westward from Central Asia, and European cultivation locked in the orange variety we know today. Those baby carrots in bags are just full-size carrots shaved down by machine. Beets can temporarily turn your urine and stool red. It is harmless, caused by natural pigments the plant produces to attract seed-spreading animals. The wild ancestor grew along the Mediterranean coast. Romans spread the root form across Europe, and later people figured out it could be processed into sugar. Today, beet-derived sugar is in more packaged foods than most people realize. Cabbage, kale, broccoli, Brussels sprouts, cauliflower, and kohlrabi are all the same species. Humans bred one wild coastal European plant into completely different shapes over thousands of years. Sailors carried cabbage on long voyages because it was cheap, storable, and prevented scurvy. Coleslaw, sauerkraut, and kimchi are all just fermented or raw versions of the same plant. You are eating the flower buds when you eat broccoli. Leave it too long in the garden, and it bursts into yellow flowers, and the edible part is gone. That green tree shape is hundreds of tiny unopened flower clusters on one stalk. It was barely known in America before Italian immigrants brought it in the early 20th century, and it is now one of the most commercially grown vegetables on earth. The artichoke is a thistle. The part you eat is the base of the flower before it opens. Leave it and it becomes a giant purple spiky bloom. After eating artichoke, a compound in it briefly makes water taste sweet by interfering with your taste receptors. Arabic traders spread its cultivation, and some accounts say it was popularized in French royal courts, though others dispute that. The potato changed European history more than almost any other food. When disease wiped out the crop in Ireland in the 1840s, over 1 million people died, and millions more immigrated, reshaping populations across the world. It came from the Andes in South America, where thousands of varieties had been developed over thousands of years. When the Spanish brought it to Europe, it took over a century for people to trust it as food. Green potatoes contain a natural chemical that can cause illness. Over 4,000 varieties exist today. Truffles cannot be planted. They grow wild underground near specific tree roots, and nobody has fully figured out how to farm them reliably. Hunters use trained dogs because truffles release a scent underground, detectable from meters away. Most truffle oil on menus is synthetic flavoring. Real truffle is rarely in the cheap stuff. A tomato is botanically a fruit, but the U.S. Supreme Court ruled in 1893 that it is legally a vegetable because it is eaten like one. The ruling was about import taxes. Europeans feared it for over a century after the Spanish brought it back because it is related to deadly nightshade. Over 10,000 varieties exist today, from tiny grape-sized to softball-sized in red, purple, yellow, black, and striped. Chili heat is not a flavor, it is pain. Capsaicin triggers the same nerve receptors as actual heat. So your brain thinks your mouth is burning. That is why dairy helps more than water. Bell peppers and jalapenos are the same species. Selective breeding removes the heat from bell peppers. Paprika, cayenne, and chili powder are all just dried ground pepper varieties. Garlic has no smell until you damage it. Cutting or crushing breaks the cell walls and triggers a chemical reaction that produces the sulfur smell. It is a defense the plant developed against insects and animals. Records of garlic use go back thousands of years across Egypt, China, and Rome. Black garlic is regular garlic heated slowly for weeks until the sugars caramelize into something almost sweet. Slicing an onion releases a gas that reacts with moisture in your eyes to form a mild acid, which is why you cry. Onions appear in ancient Egyptian tomb paintings and were reportedly used as currency for monument workers. The layered structure is compressed leaf bases, not root or stem. The papery outer skin is a dried leaf. Caramelizing onions properly takes over 45 minutes because the sugars transform very slowly, which is why most recipes that claim 10 minutes are wrong. Spinach became famous for iron largely because of a reported decimal point error by a 19th century scientist that made it appear to have 10 times the iron it actually has. The myth attached to Popeye and stuck for decades. Spinach is over 90% water, so a full bag of raw leaves collapses to a few tablespoons when cooked. It came from ancient Persia and spread to Europe through Arab traders during the medieval period. Romanesco looks like a vegetable designed by a mathematician. Its spiral pattern is a near-perfect fractal, where each bud is a miniature copy of the whole head. Following the Fibonacci sequence, the same pattern in sunflower seeds and nautilus shells. It likely appeared in Italian markets around the 16th century and stayed mostly in Italian cooking for centuries before food media made it globally recognizable. Peanuts are not nuts, they are legumes. After flowering above ground, the stem bends downward and physically drills the seed pod into the soil to ripen underground in darkness. That stem is called a peg. The peanut came from South America and spread to Africa and Asia through Portuguese and Spanish traders. One crop became peanut butter in the U.S., satay sauce in Southeast Asia, and groundnut stew in West Africa. Asparagus takes roughly 3 years of growth before a single stalk can be harvested. If the shoot is left alone in spring, it grows into a feathery fern over a meter high within weeks. It was depicted in ancient Egyptian art and prized as a luxury in Rome. It is still largely hand-harvested commercially because machines damage the shoots. Certain compounds in it cause a distinct smell in urine for some people within minutes, and researchers still debate why only some people notice. Slice a lotus root crosswise and you get a geometric cross-section of perfect repeating oval holes. It is the underwater stem of the lotus flower growing submerged in mud. The hollow channels are functional, carrying oxygen from the surface flower down to the roots in the mud below. It has been cultivated across China, India, and Southeast Asia for thousands of years. It shows up in stir-fries, soups, and chips. And the cross-section is one of the most photographed vegetables in food media. Corn does not exist in nature. It was created by humans over thousands of years from a wild grass called teosinte that looks almost nothing like it. The wild version had a few tiny hard seeds on a small stalk. Mesoamerican civilizations in Mexico and Central America shaped it through careful selection across generations. Corn cannot spread its own seeds. The husk holds everything too tightly. If a plant falls over unharvested, the seeds rot together. The crop only survives because humans keep planting it. Corn syrup, cornstarch, ethanol, popcorn, tortillas. It appears in a significant portion of every product in a typical grocery store. The sweet potato is not related to the regular potato despite the name. It is a completely different plant from a different family. It came from Central and South America and spread across the Pacific long before European contact, reaching Polynesia through trade or migration routes that researchers still debate. The orange flesh stores beta-carotene, the same pigment that makes carrots orange. Purple varieties exist and are common across parts of Asia. Eggplant comes in dozens of shapes and colors: long, thin purple, small, round green, white, striped. The standard dark purple globe version is just the most exported form. It came from South Asia and was cultivated in China and India for thousands of years before Arab traders brought it to the Mediterranean. The name in many languages translates to apple of the earth. Raw eggplant contains a mild irritant, which is why cooking it properly matters. Celery is mostly water and fiber and takes more energy to digest than most people assume. The wild ancestor was a marsh plant used medically for centuries before anyone ate it as food. Ancient Greeks and Romans used it more like a herb than a vegetable. The crunchy stalk version, familiar today, was developed through cultivation in Europe, mostly in the 17th century. Celery seed is a completely separate spice used across cuisines worldwide. The leek is one of the oldest cultivated vegetables, with records going back to ancient Egypt and Mesopotamia. It is related to onion and garlic, but milder. The edible white part is a bundle of tightly wrapped leaf bases, not a stem. It is the national symbol of Wales, reportedly linked to a battle where Welsh soldiers wore leeks in their helmets to identify each other. It is now a base vegetable in French and British cooking, most commonly in soups. Bok choy has been cultivated in China for over 6,000 years, making it one of the oldest continuously grown vegetables on record. The white stalks and dark green leaves cook at different rates, which is why high-heat fast cooking suits it. It's spread globally through Chinese diaspora communities and is now grown commercially across North America, Europe, and Australia. Fennel tastes like licorice, but is not related to it. The flavor comes from a compound found in several unrelated plants, which is why anise, licorice root, and fennel all taste similar despite being completely different species. Every part of the fennel plant is edible. The bulb, the stalks, the fronds, and the seeds are all used in cooking. It came from the Mediterranean and was valued in ancient Rome and Greece, both as food and in folk medicine. Radishes grow faster than almost any other vegetable. Some varieties go from seed to harvest in under 3 weeks. They came from East or Central Asia, with records of cultivation in China and Egypt going back thousands of years. The spicy bite comes from the same family of compounds found in mustard and horseradish. Daikon, the long white radish, common in Japanese and Korean cooking, is the same species as the small red variety most people in the West recognize. Watercress grows in moving water. It thrives along stream banks and has been eaten wild by humans for thousands of years. It is one of the oldest known leaf vegetables consumed by humans and appears in records from ancient Persia and Rome. It has a sharp, peppery flavor from natural compounds the plant produces as a defense. It was historically associated with poor rural communities in Britain. Foraged from streams before becoming a specialty ingredient in fine dining, the Jerusalem artichoke is not from Jerusalem and is not an artichoke. It is a sunflower. The edible part is the underground tuber of a North American sunflower species. The name likely came from a corruption of the Italian word for sunflower. It ferments in the gut for some people in a way that causes significant digestive discomfort, which is how it earned the nickname the fartichoke. It was a staple food for various Native American groups long before European contact. Kohlrabi looks like a vegetable from another planet. The swollen round bulb sits above the soil with leaves shooting out at angles. That bulb is not a root. It is a swollen stem. Kohlrabi is another form of the same wild cabbage species that produce broccoli, cauliflower, and Brussels sprouts. It is popular in German, Indian, and Central European cooking and is increasingly common in Western farmers markets. The flavor is mild and slightly sweet, somewhere between broccoli stem and apple. Bitter melon is one of the most intensely bitter vegetables eaten anywhere in the world. It is not an acquired taste so much as a deliberate choice used heavily in South Asian, East Asian, and Caribbean cooking for its bitterness as a flavor component. Not despite it, it came from tropical Asia and Africa and spread globally through diaspora communities. The wrinkled green exterior looks like a cucumber that had a bad week. Taro is one of the oldest cultivated crops on Earth, with evidence of farming going back over 10,000 years in parts of Southeast Asia and the Pacific. The corm, the starchy underground part, is a dietary staple across Pacific Island cultures, parts of Africa, South Asia, and the Caribbean. Raw taro contains crystals of a natural irritant that can cause intense itching in the mouth and throat, which is why proper cooking is essential. Poi, the fermented paste central to Hawaiian food culture, is made from taro. There are hundreds more, each with its own strange biology, forgotten origin, and a story most people eating it every day have never once thought about. If these stories change the way you look at the vegetables on your plate, please subscribe and like the channel. We are digging up the history they tried to bury. Let's plant the seeds for the future. The next treasure trove of knowledge will soon be revealed.